In the quiet town of Kellogg, Idaho, a shadow loomed over two families. Major John Kayler, a man driven by rage and a twisted sense of protection, unleashed a brutal attack on his neighbors. What seemed like an act of defense would shatter one family and destroy another. But the truth behind Kayler's violent outburst was far from straightforward. It all began with an accusation that never saw proof. Still, that unproven claim set off a chain of events that ended in tragedy and death. The haunting question remains: how far would a man go to protect those he loves? As we unravel the tangled threads of this case, we'll see the dark path Major John Kayler chose, a path stained with violence beyond his own reckoning. Kenna Gardipy, 41 years old, called the 500 block of West Brown Avenue home. Nestled in the small community of Kellogg, with its population barely over 2,000, this town was a refuge in the scenic Silver Valley of Shoshone County. For Kenna, it was a chance to find some peace amid hardship. She lived in the lower half of a duplex alongside her father, Kenna Gardipy, 65, and her two teenage sons, Devin and Aiken Smith, aged 18 and 16. Though Devin and Aiken carried the last name Smith, their connection to the Gardipy family was undeniable. Their biological father had been present long enough to give them his name, but had abandoned them, leaving Kenna to raise the boys alone. Silva, Kenna's mother, revealed that her daughter had vanished from contact for months. Since early 2023, Kenna had been off the radar, as if fleeing from an unknown threat. Eventually, Kenna returned to her father's home in Kellogg, seeking shelter and security. Kenneth welcomed them with open arms. Yet, no matter his efforts, he could not replace the void left by the absent father in Devin and Aiken's lives. The family settled into the ground-floor apartment, forging a cautious but respectful relationship with the Kaylers upstairs. Sharing a backyard, their lives intertwined in ways that seemed peaceful on the surface. Yet beneath that calm facade, a storm was brewing, one that would erupt suddenly and leave the town forever changed. Central to this tension was Devin, a young man struggling deeply with social boundaries and his place in the world. But lurking in the shadows was Major John Kayler himself, a man carrying a volatile temper beneath his rugged exterior. His violent potential was a ticking time bomb, waiting for the right moment to explode. Major John Kayler's appearance was a warning in itself. The word savage, inked boldly across his forehead, spoke of a man ready to snap without warning. Still, to outsiders, the Kayler family seemed stable and happy. John Kayler held steady employment at the local mine, providing for his wife Kaylee and their 3 young children. To the world, they were a picture of normalcy in this remote town. Yet beneath the surface, Kayler's past bore dark stains. His criminal record, peppered with narcotics possession, revealed a reckless streak. Though charges had been reduced to misdemeanors, the shadow of his history limited his prospects. Born and bred in Shoshone County, Kayler had likely been drawn to Kellogg by the promise of steady work at the local gold mine. Like Kenna, he sought solace in the quiet town, trying to rebuild a fractured life. His family was his anchor, and he was fiercely determined to protect them. Idaho's permissive gun laws gave him the means. He carried a concealed firearm constantly, vigilant against any threat. Yet, it was as if he was waiting for a justification to wield that weapon. Maybe his past battles with darker elements of life had taught him that true safety was an illusion. With Devin Smith living directly below, a clash was all but inevitable. Devin's troubled upbringing and social struggles set the stage for a collision with Major John Kayler's volatile nature. Devin's challenges were many. Growing up without a father left deep scars, compounded by a learning disability that isolated him further in the tight-knit Kellogg community. His younger brother, Aiken, appeared well-adjusted and accepted. Yet Devin carried a reputation for troubling behavior, especially toward women, a pattern that unsettled those around him. The reasons behind their father's absence remain unclear, but Devin's social difficulties and obsessive tendencies hinted at a history that may have been marked by abuse or neglect. Photographs later revealed Devin's graduation from high school. Yet, the underlying personality problems persisted, and his mother and grandfather struggled to contain his behavior. The Gardipy family had only recently moved into the duplex's lower apartment. The move possibly stemmed from Devin's escalating troubles. As summer approached, Devin anticipated a long, unstructured break. Devin Smith's grasp of consent was alarmingly flawed, leading him to act in ways that unsettled those around him. At school, he earned a reputation for extremely inappropriate behavior, which likely included incidents of indecent exposure. His troubling conduct eventually landed him in a special program designed for troubled teens. The program appeared to have some effect, as photographic records confirmed Devin's graduation from high school. Yet his deeper issues remained unaddressed. It seems his mother, Jerry Silva, and grandfather David Silva may not have done enough to restrain him. The Gardipy family had only recently moved into the lower floor of the duplex. This move happened mere weeks before the tragic incident. There is speculation that Devin's behavior may have forced this relocation. Soon after graduation, Devin looked forward to a summer free of worries. Whether college was in his plans remains uncertain. The town of Kellogg offered few opportunities for a teenager struggling with boundaries and a history of inappropriate advances toward women. Above him, Major John Kayler vigilantly scanned for any sign that his family's sanctuary was under threat. This volatile situation transformed the duplex into a powder keg, primed to explode. Devin's disturbing actions would prove to be the spark that ignited a devastating blaze, consuming both families in its path. On June 13, 2023, Kaylee Kayler was tending her garden with her young daughters when she witnessed a chilling scene. The Gardipy family's bathroom window overlooked the backyard, and through it, Kaylee saw Devin standing there. Naked, clutching himself, Devin appeared to be pleasuring himself while staring directly at Kaylee and her daughters, all under 10 years old. The shock of this moment left Kaylee deeply shaken. She immediately confided in her husband and then took to Facebook to share the ordeal. Without hesitation, the Kayler family reported the incident to the police. Authorities responded quickly, visiting the duplex to investigate. Despite Kaylee's persistent claims that Devin was a predator, police found insufficient evidence to press charges. The case stalled, unresolved. Major John Kayler was consumed by fury. He believed the police had failed to protect his daughters, leaving them vulnerable next door to a dangerous threat. His mind darkened, fixating on his firearm. He contemplated using his gun to eliminate the danger once and for all. On Father's Day, June 15th, the Kaylers tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but tension hung heavy in the air. Kayler's mood was grim, haunted by the incident. He couldn't shake the threat looming over his family. Meanwhile, in the apartment below, the Gardipy family likely observed no celebration at all. With no father present and a recent police visit, unease filled their home. Kenna Gardipy looked at her son Devin, weighed the numerous accusations against him, and felt compelled to protect him. Devin's only anchors were his mother, his brother Kenneth, and his grandfather. Perhaps if intervention had come then, the tragic outcome might have been averted, but tragically, no one acted in time. 3 days later, the simmering rage inside Major Kayler erupted. On the evening of June 18th, after a grueling Sunday shift at the mine, Kayler returned home, his torment unbearable. It's chilling to imagine how his thoughts fixated on the predator below, a man who could harm his daughters while he was away at work. Immediately upon arrival, Kayler secured his .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun to his belt. He rejoined his family in the garden, the very spot of the earlier nightmare. It's likely he carried his weapon as a precaution, though Devin was nowhere to be seen. Standing at the scene of the crime seemed to push Kayler beyond his limits. Determined to take control, he strode to the Gardipy residence and knocked on the door, where Kenna answered. Kayler unleashed a furious tirade, accusing her of shielding a child predator. He confronted her once more with the allegations against Devin, seeking some hint of remorse or acknowledgement. But Kenna remained resolute, unwilling to betray her son regardless of his actions. The commotion drew Kenneth to the door, who attempted to defuse the situation, denying any wrongdoing on Devin's part. According to Kayler, neither offered an apology or expressed regret. Their refusal to recognize the severity of the situation only fueled his growing rage. Then came the devastating blow. When Kayler pressed them on what steps they intended to take, they coldly responded that nothing could be done. This final dismissal sealed Kayler's resolve. He saw no choice but to act himself. At precisely 7:20 p.m., the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office received a frantic call from a resident on West Brown Avenue. There was no denial. Kayler confessed outright to executing the family as retribution for the threat against his daughters. The evidence pieced together a chilling sequence of events. Kayler first shot Kenna and Kenneth on the rear steps of their home. Then, he entered the house, confronted Aiken, pressed the gun to his temple, and pulled the trigger. Devin likely heard the gunfire below and sensed the danger. Terrified, he hid behind his bedroom door, hoping the assailant would pass without finding him. But Kayler was relentless. He located Devin, forced him to his knees, and possibly demanded an apology. Instead, Devin pleaded for mercy. Unmoved by the boy's tears, Kayler ended his life with a gunshot to the head, mirroring the fate of the others. Investigators found numerous empty shell casings, indicating Kayler had emptied and reloaded his weapon. This scene was not the result of a momentary lapse. It was a cold, calculated massacre. Kayler's wife, Kaylee, remained in the garden during the confrontation. She later recounted witnessing Kenna and Kenneth being gunned down. Panicked, she gathered her daughters and retreated to their apartment, where she heard more gunshots. Eventually, she overheard her husband confessing over the phone to having taken 4 lives. It appears Kayler was calling the police to admit his crimes. He offered no resistance when arrested. His final words to Kaylee were a grim declaration. He had acted solely to protect their daughters. Major John Kayler was swiftly taken into custody, facing 4 counts of first-degree murder and an additional charge of felony burglary. The shockwaves rippled through Shoshone County, leaving residents grappling with how one man could commit such a horrific act. Rumors swirled about Devin Smith, accused by some of being a child predator. This charged atmosphere made the courtroom tense. Kayler appeared before the judge clad in a bulletproof vest, confronting the grim reality of a possible life sentence. The law demanded a minimum of 10 years per murder count. Since Kayler had not waived his right to a speedy trial, proceedings had to begin before February 19th. Before the trial, Kayler had admitted to police that he had shot his neighbors. He confessed to snapping under pressure, citing a long-standing dispute that pushed him to extreme measures in defense of his family. Given this, many expected a guilty plea. Yet, Kayler stunned everyone at his first court appearance by pleading not guilty to all charges, despite his earlier confession. It's believed his attorney urged this plea, knowing Idaho's death penalty loomed over a first-degree murder conviction. Still, the evidence was overwhelming. A local business owner's surveillance camera had recorded Kayler ruthlessly shooting his neighbors. The footage was damning, leaving little room for doubt. Adding to this, Kayler had shared a photo of Leon Gary Pluff, a man who took lethal revenge after his son was abducted and abused. Kayler captioned the image, "How to Catch a Predator," revealing a chilling mindset bent on vigilantism. This demonstrated Kayler's belief that killing Devin Smith was the only path forward. The victim impact statements sealed the case's emotional weight. David Silva, Kenna Gardipy's maternal grandfather, lamented the loss. He mourned, saying Kayler had destroyed an entire branch of their family tree, robbing them of future generations and a best friend. Aiken Smith, a devoted community volunteer, was remembered as part of a beautiful family shattered by one man. On March 25, 2024, Kayler entered a guilty plea to reduced charges of second-degree murder. This plea spared him the death penalty. Judge Barbara Dugan condemned his crimes as heinous, sentencing him to life imprisonment. She delivered a scathing rebuke of his murderous rampage. Kayler now spends his days in a state correctional facility with no chance of parole. Meanwhile, his family faces a difficult aftermath, supported by a GoFundMe started by his brother-in-law, Buddy. The Gardipy family must cope with the loss, burying their dead and striving to heal. The Kellogg community honored the victims with a memorial, a somber reminder of lives cut short. This case forces a difficult question. Did Major John Kayler cross a fatal line, or did he believe he was taking necessary steps to protect his family? The community remains divided, haunted by the devastating consequences of one man's deadly decisions.